"Do not buy that vase, it is fake." A young black woman shouts across the crowded art expo, stopping a billionaire just seconds before he spends $15 million. The room freezes. Everyone stares. How did she know the truth? And who is this mysterious woman who dares to expose a lie in front of the world? Stay until the end, because what happens next will shock everyone. In a world full of struggles and second chances, every story hides a lesson worth learning. This is Afnan Art, where ordinary lives become extraordinary tales. Sit back, open your heart, and let the story begin. New York City. Late afternoon sunlight poured through the massive glass walls of Javits Convention Center, turning the floor into a sheet of gold. The Manhattan Heritage Expo opened only once a year, attracting collectors, investors, and art enthusiasts from across the United States. Reporters and photographers rushed from one display to another, documenting treasures worth more than luxury penthouses. Zariah Mitchell walked alone, holding a warm cup of caramel latte she bought from a coffee booth outside. She wore a simple white t-shirt, denim jacket, and faded sneakers. Nothing about her appearance suggested she belonged among wealthy collectors. People brushed past her without paying attention, but her eyes moved differently. She did not stare at the price tags. She studied every detail, material, texture, and brushstroke. Her steps slowed when she reached the center hall, where a spotlight shone on a display case. Inside it stood a tall, elegant vase in jade green with delicate gold accents. The card beside it read, "Ancient Korean Celadon. Estimated value, $15.4 million. 3 art critics stood nearby, whispering, "Logan Whitaker is on his way here." The Logan Whitaker? The investor who buys rare antiques like they are candy? If he pays the listed value, this expo will be on every headline tomorrow. Zariah sipped her latte. Logan Whitaker. She had read about him in news articles, a man known for his sharp decisions, clean record, and zero tolerance for fraud. If he bought the vase, the expo would become a global sensation overnight. But while everyone admired the shine, Zariah noticed what others missed. A tiny reflection of gold paint near the base where the glaze did not fuse properly. The brushstrokes were too modern. The vase was not ancient. It was a replica. Her heartbeat quickened. She knew exactly what she was looking at. And she knew exactly how dangerous it would be if she spoke up. One step closer, she whispered to herself. Not yet. She circled the display to get a clearer view. As she did, the doors at the far end of the hall opened. A wave of attention rippled through the room. The air shifted. Logan Whitaker entered, tall, confident. Navy gray suit tailored perfectly to his build. 2 security bodyguards followed closely behind him. People moved aside instinctively, as though the floor parted for him. He approached the vase. Zariah watched from behind a sculpture stand. She already knew his type, focused, dominant. A man used to getting what he wanted without being questioned. The expo owner, Preston Aldridge, greeted Logan with an eager smile. "Mr. Logan, this is the crown jewel of our exhibition, an authentic Goryeo Celadon. Historians consider it a national treasure." Logan examined the vase with a polite nod. "It is flawless." Zariah blinked slowly. No, it was too flawless. Real antiques carried marks of age, microscopic cracks, hints of time. This vase had none. Preston continued talking. "If you are interested, we can finalize the deal today." Logan looked impressed. "Name your price." Zariah felt a punch in her stomach. He was going to buy it. He was really going to buy it. Her body reacted before her mind did. She pushed through the crowd and raised her voice. "Stop, do not buy that vase." The entire hall froze. Logan turned slowly. Preston's jaw dropped. Security guards stepped forward until they formed a barrier between her and the billionaire. Zariah lifted her chin and spoke clearly. "That vase is not what you think it is." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Logan narrowed his eyes. "And what exactly do you think it is?" Zariah took a breath, steadying her voice. A very expensive lie. Everyone inhaled at the same time. The hall that just moments ago hummed with polite conversations now felt like a courtroom. Everyone stared, waiting for someone to make the next move. Even the air seemed to stop. Zariah stood alone in front of the billionaire. Her shoulders squared, her voice steady even though her heartbeat was racing. For one brief second, the reflection of the display lights danced across her dark eyes, making her look fearless. Her caramel latte trembled slightly in her hand, but she refused to lower her gaze. Logan Whitaker did not blink. He took one slow step toward her, his polished shoes echoing across the silent hall. Security looked at him, waiting for an order. They were ready to grab her if he simply nodded. But instead of anger, Logan's face showed curiosity. "You claim this vase is not real," he said, his voice deep and steady. "What makes you so certain?" Zaraya swallowed. There were almost 40 people watching. She could feel every gaze drilling into her skin. Most of them assumed she was crazy, desperate for attention. She had no designer clothes, no VIP badge, and no name any of these wealthy people would recognize. Yet she kept her hands steady. "It is too perfect," she began, her voice gaining strength. "Real Goryeo Celadon has tiny cracks from centuries of being exposed to humidity. The glaze at the bottom has natural oxidation. But that," she pointed at the vase, "was made in a modern studio with artificial gold pigment." Logan's brows lowered, but not in disbelief. He was analyzing her. Every word, every movement. Preston Aldridge, the owner of the expo, quickly forced a laugh. "This is ridiculous. Young lady, you are embarrassing yourself." But Zaraya continued, ignoring him completely. "There is also a micro sticker on the underside. Modern replicas often use it for inventory tracking, and only modern studios use gold pigments on Celadon glazes." A gasp rippled through the crowd. Preston's smile stiffened. His voice sliced through the air. "Guards, remove her from my exhibition." 2 security guards stepped forward, hands ready to reach for her arms. Zaraya watched them approach, but she didn't move. She refused to step back. If she walked away now, Logan would be cheated out of $15 million, and the fraud would continue for someone else. She spoke louder. "If you buy that vase, you are letting a thief walk away with your money." The guards tightened their formation. Logan raised his hand. They stopped immediately. "I want to hear the rest," he said quietly. Preston's face lost color. He tried to regain control. "Mr. Logan, please. This girl is not a professional. She is probably a student who—" Logan cut him off. "What is your name?" he asked, directing the question only to her. Zaraya took a breath. "Zaraya Mitchell." Logan studied her again, slower this time, as though measuring the weight of her confidence. Her clothes were simple. Her sneakers were worn. She was clearly not from the world of the elite, and yet she spoke with certainty. Certainty that could only come from knowledge. "Zaraya," he said, "if what you are saying is true, then show me." "Prove it." She stepped closer to the glass case. Her voice was low, but everyone heard it. "Look closely at the base, right where the gold pigment meets the green glaze. The color changes. Real Celadon does not do that." Logan leaned toward the glass. He narrowed his eyes, focusing intensely. For a moment, he didn't speak. The crowd waited for his reaction, breath held. Then Logan straightened his posture. His voice turned cold. "Dangerously cold. I want a magnifying glass." Preston's confidence shattered. He reached for his tie, tugging it nervously. "That will not be necessary. We trust the experts." Logan cut him again. "I am not asking." A staff member rushed to bring a magnifying glass. Logan leaned in once more, examining every angle of the vase. When he finally pulled away, his expression was unreadable. He looked at Preston. "Why is there a production code underneath the base of an ancient vase?" Preston froze. Zaraya watched as his mask of control began to crack. He stuttered, I must check with the curators." But Logan wasn't finished. "And why was I not informed that the glaze contained artificial pigment, used only since 2011? Preston took a shaky step back. The hall began buzzing with whispers. Zaraya stood still, calm, certain, unafraid. Logan turned to her again. His eyes, sharp and calculating, softened just a fraction. "Who exactly are you, Zaraya Mitchell?" Zaraya lifted her chin. "Someone who refuses to let the truth be buried just because the room is full of money." The hall erupted. After the confrontation, silence swept across the gallery like a cold draft. The wealthy guests who moments ago admired the vase now pretended to observe other displays. Yet their eyes continued following Zaraya and Logan from a distance. They whispered in low voices, afraid to be heard yet desperate to know what would happen next. Zaraya stood still, letting the moment settle. She had not planned to expose anyone. She came to the expo to enjoy art quietly, not to interfere with million-dollar transactions. But the sight of the forged vase had stirred something inside her. The injustice was too loud to ignore. Across the hall, Preston Aldridge retreated behind the tall glass partition of his private office. He closed the blinds halfway, believing no one could see him. But Zariah noticed his silhouette pacing back and forth. His movements were frantic, sharp, and uneven. Every step screamed nervousness. He grabbed a phone from his desk and began speaking with quick, sharp gestures, as if forcing whoever was on the line to fix the problem immediately. His posture revealed fear. Not the fear of losing money, but the fear of exposure. Meanwhile, Logan's security team positioned themselves near the vase, forming a protective wall. They examined the case, the labels, and even the security seals on the display table. Logan remained quiet, analyzing every detail. He was a man accustomed to chaos, a man who knew how to read intentions without a word being spoken. Zariah moved to a corner and sat on a velvet bench. Her hands finally trembled. The adrenaline that had kept her steady earlier now made her feel weightless. She stared at the floor, feeling the weight of her decision pressing down on her. She knew what it meant to challenge wealthy, powerful people in public. She knew that if she was wrong, she would be humiliated and possibly banned from every exhibition in the city. But deep down, she held no doubt. Her conviction was built from years of research, study, and truth. She remembered the countless nights she spent in silent museum basements, studying original Celadon pieces under white gloves. She remembered the smell of dust and old books while she wrote her thesis on fraudulent art transactions in America's luxury market. Every museum she worked with admired her knowledge. None of them knew her face. Here, in this expo, she was invisible. Yet today, invisibility had become her advantage. Across the room, Logan finally stepped away from the vase. He studied the security guard's report and the photograph taken from the underside of the vase. His expression shifted slightly, enough for people to understand that the truth had landed. Instead of confronting Preston again, he simply walked toward the tall window overlooking the Hudson River. He stood there in deep thought, letting the city lights reflect against the glass. The river shimmered like a sheet of broken diamonds, while the sun slowly dipped behind the skyline. The world outside moved as usual, unaware that inside this hall, a fraud worth millions had been revealed. Zariah sat quietly watching Logan from afar. She realized something in that moment. She had expected anger, outrage, a fierce argument. But instead, Logan responded with silence, with evaluation, with patience. He was not reckless like journalists described him. He was intentional. People began avoiding Zariah, walking past as if she carried bad luck. They did not dare speak to her. She had crossed a line that most people in expensive suits were afraid to touch. The truth. The evening deepened, and a soft classical melody played through the speakers, attempting to tame the tension, but it only made the silence heavier. Even the art seemed to hold its breath. Zariah remained seated, feeling a storm build beneath the polished surface of the expo. In the far office, Preston hung up his phone and wiped sweat from his forehead. His face twisted with something darker than embarrassment, fear, panic, and calculation. He stared at Zariah with an expression that blended anger and desperation. He needed to stop her. He needed to regain control, no matter the cost. Outside the office window, Logan turned and faced the hall again. His eyes locked onto Zariah across the distance. She held his gaze, calm and unwavering. The game had changed. The truth was already out. The tension of the expo deepened as the sky outside turned darker, letting the interior lights dominate every corner of the convention center. The once vibrant exhibition now felt like a staged theater, where every guest had become a silent witness to something larger than an art showcase. Cameras stopped flashing. Conversations shifted into hushed murmurs. It was as if the entire hall had grown ears. Zariah remained seated on the velvet bench, letting her breathing settle. She did not regret speaking up, but she understood the ripple it created. In places like this, truth was not welcomed unless it benefited someone powerful. Here, truth was dangerous. She slid a finger along the paper cup in her hand, feeling the warmth fade. The latte was cold now. In front of her, reflections from the Celadon vase danced against the polished floor. its green glaze glowing under the spotlight. The vase looked innocent, even beautiful. No one would suspect it held a silent crime. Security stood firm around the display, taller and more alert than before. Guests gave them a wide berth as if approaching the vase could shock them. Far away, Logan still stood by the tall window, staring into the cityscape. His mind was elsewhere, not on the vase nor the money, but on the young woman who dared to challenge an entire institution without hesitation. Someone like her did not appear randomly. Someone like her had a reason. He shifted away from the window and walked slowly back toward the center of the hall. His steps were controlled, measured. The billionaire who used to walk into rooms expecting admiration now moved with a deeper calculation. He scanned faces not for approval but for intent. Suddenly, the expo owner, Preston Aldridge, reappeared. His face was flushed, his hair slightly disheveled. Whatever phone call he had made earlier had not gone well. He hid his panic behind a strained smile. Preston adjusted his tuxedo jacket and forced confidence back into his posture, as if fear could be ironed out with good posture alone. He approached a group of prestigious collectors, whispering into their ears. His gestures were sharp. His eyes kept flicking toward Zariah. The collectors nodded stiffly and separated, moving to different parts of the hall. They weren't leaving. They were positioning themselves. Zariah watched with quiet awareness, not letting her concern show. She studied human behavior more than any artifact, and Preston's behavior screamed threat. He had lost control of the room, and now he was trying to take it back using subtle influence. A woman in an emerald dress passed in front of Zariah. She paused for a moment, looking down at her with a judging expression. Then she turned her face away and continued walking. Others did the same. People who admired art valued exclusivity. Zariah broke that unspoken rule. She disrupted power, money, and illusion. Those things were sacred here. She watched them without emotion. She had spent years working behind displays, unseen. Judgment no longer had weight on her. Across the hall, Logan's head tilted slightly as he caught sight of Preston's nervous behavior. His instincts sharpened. Logan did not build a financial empire by ignoring shady movements. He followed Preston with his eyes, studying every move. Preston avoided his gaze, circling the collectors again, whispering, persuading, trying to recover influence. A soft vibration hummed through Zariah's pocket. She pulled out her phone. A news alert flashed across the screen. Manhattan Heritage Expo rumored to host a $15 million fraud investigation tonight. Her pulse quickened. News was spreading fast, too fast. She looked up, scanning the room again. Preston's movements became more frantic. Logan's security team held their positions, but even they appeared more alert, as their radios crackled with quiet updates. Something bigger was unfolding. Zariah stood from the bench and took one slow step forward. She didn't need to speak. She didn't need to defend herself. The truth was already in motion. Behind the glass wall of his office, Preston gripped the back of his leather chair so tightly that his knuckles turned white. He stared at Zariah with resentment, as though she had ruined not just a sale, but his entire empire. He had built a career on reputation, on charm, and on carefully crafted connections. His exhibitions relied not on honesty, but on the illusion of exclusivity. The vase was not the first fake piece he had showcased. It was simply the most expensive one, and this girl threatened everything. Zariah slowly walked toward the display, not touching anything, just observing. The hall felt colder. People moved aside as she passed, creating an involuntary path for her. She didn't rush. She didn't tremble. Awareness settled into her steps as though she owned the moment. From across the room, Logan watched her approach the vase again. And for the first time that night, he noticed something subtle. She was not drawn to the vase. She was drawn to the truth it represented. The atmosphere thickened. Something irreversible had begun, and every person in the expo knew the night would not end quietly. The hum of the expo returned, but something invisible had shifted. It was no longer an exhibition. It was a battlefield. Zariah stood near the display, keeping enough distance to avoid suspicion, yet close enough to analyze the environment. She watched how the crowd shifted, how whispers thickened in the air. Traders, collectors, and influencers swarmed the event, pretending to admire the art while their eyes darted between her and Logan. Every movement around her felt strategic. She let her fingers rest casually at her side, yet her senses sharpened. She had seen this pattern before, in museum auctions, in private negotiations, in rooms where money held more power than integrity. When truth disrupts commerce, people don't stay neutral. Across the expo floor, Preston Aldridge changed tactics. Instead of yelling, instead of demanding security to remove her, he began planting doubt. He stepped beside various collectors, leaning close as though whispering secrets. The collectors listened, glancing at Zariah with new hostility. Their faces hardened, not from anger but from fear. Fear that this scandal could decrease the value of their own investments. Preston wasn't trying to win back credibility. He was trying to isolate her. Zariah watched quietly. She had been underestimated all her life, and that was often her advantage. People mistook silence for weakness, when in truth silence allowed her to see everything. She moved slowly along the edge of the display area, studying the vase under the shifting angles of the spotlight. The color gleamed unnaturally bright. Real ancient glaze absorbed light. This vase bounced it back like polished metal. Her mind drifted for a moment to the places where she first saw real Celadon. Dim museum basements, sealed storage rooms, archival facilities with controlled humidity. The air back then smelled of dust and time. Ancient art had weight, spirit, the aura of having survived centuries. This vase was weightless, a hollow performance. Near the back of the hall, Logan watched Zariah with an expression that had changed since earlier. It was no longer curiosity. It was study. He was trying to understand the shape of her mind, the reason behind her certainty. He valued people who acted based on truth, even when it offered no advantage. He noticed something the crowd overlooked. Zariah did not brag. She did not try to impress him. She did not even defend herself against the whispers. She simply focused on the vase. Logan turned to his chief security. "Do me a favor," he said quietly. "Pull the transaction history of this vase. I want to know where it came from." The guard nodded and stepped away, speaking into his earpiece. Logan continued watching Zariah with growing respect. He was a businessman. He had met liars, scammers, opportunists. He could smell greed from a mile away. Zariah had no scent of greed. At that moment, the soft melody of a piano filled the room as a live musician began to play. Guests used the distraction as a shield to speak more freely. Their whispers carried across the hall. "She is trying to ruin the expo. Probably jealous. Nothing but a random visitor." Zariah walked toward a quiet corner of the hall, letting the tension drain from her shoulders. She rested her hands on the railing overlooking the lower level. From here, the expo looked organized, elegant, perfect. A world built on presentation. She wondered how many pieces displayed here had stories written to hide fraud. How many buyers believed in the illusion of rarity. The world of art was beautiful, but the business of art was ruthless. Suddenly, a voice broke through her thoughts. "You disrupted a $15 million investment tonight." Zariah turned. Logan stood beside her, not too close, not too distant. His presence held the kind of calm that only powerful people possessed, but his tone lacked arrogance. He continued, "Most people stay silent when they see something wrong. It is easier to look away." Zariah kept her gaze on the exhibition floor. Silence helps the wrong people. Logan studied her profile, the way her jaw tightened slightly when she spoke. She was not performing. She was living her truth. Finally, he spoke again, his voice deep but steady. "What made you so certain? Not about the vase, about speaking up." Zariah let the silence hang in the air before she answered. "I know what it feels like to be unheard, to know the truth and still be treated as if your voice has no value." Logan did not respond immediately. For the first time that night, he felt something shift inside him. Not admiration, recognition. Downstairs, Preston watched them from afar, his expression tight. His world was cracking, and he knew exactly who was responsible. He picked up his phone again. If truth could not be silenced, he would find another way to bury it. The echo of the piano faded into the distance, leaving behind a slow hum of conversations. The mood was no longer festive. Anxiety laced the air like a thin layer of smoke, visible only to those who paid attention. Zariah rested her hands on the railing, feeling the cold metal steady her breath. She sensed the change in energy, The expo had become a minefield. Across the hall, Preston Aldridge moved with agitation. He tried to appear calm, greeting guests with stiff smiles, but his eyes betrayed him. His gaze flicked from collector to collector, hunting for support, for someone powerful enough to push Zariah out of the narrative. His world was not built on truth. It was built on influence. Losing control meant losing everything. Zariah watched him from above, studying the subtle tremor in his hands, the tension in his shoulders, the slight panic behind his forced grin. She understood that look. It was the fear of a man who had lived too long under lies and now faced the possibility of being unmasked. Preston leaned toward a collector with a narrow face and expensive cufflinks. His voice was low, but his expression revealed the intensity of his words. He gestured toward Zariah, subtle but unmistakable. The collector nodded, then another, until a small circle of individuals began circulating the room like silent chess pieces. They weren't approaching her, not yet. They were positioning themselves not to confront the truth, but to contain it. Zariah turned away from the railing and approached a smaller exhibit. It showcased ancient pottery from various dynasties. She scanned the display without reading labels, letting her eyes trace the surface, absorb the texture, and decode the story behind each artifact. She could identify history by instinct, the same way some people recognized melodies. The soft glow of warm light reflected off the glaze of the pottery. Unlike the fake vase, these pieces breathed history. Age whispered through every crack and flaw. The imperfections were what made them priceless. She whispered inside her thoughts, a reminder to herself. Real art survives time. Lies dissolve when exposed to light. Behind her, footsteps approached, so deliberate, confident. Not rushed like Preston's, not alert like security. Intentional. Logan. He stopped beside her, both of them facing the glass display. The two stood without speaking, allowing silence to fill the space between them. Even in stillness, Logan radiated presence. People didn't look at him because of his wealth. They looked at him because he carried certainty the way others carried breath. Zariah did not glance at him. She continued observing the pottery, without turning. Logan spoke, not with irritation or curiosity, but a quiet realization. You knew the vase was going to be purchased today. Zariah remained still. The words were not a question, they were a conclusion. She drew a soft breath, remembering the countless hours spent reading auction leak reports, studying the black market of forged antiques, learning how fakes infiltrated legitimate exhibitions. The museums she consulted confided in her because she saw patterns others ignored. I know Preston's history, she finally replied, her voice low. Every exhibition he hosts features one sensational piece, the kind that draws headlines and rich buyers. None of those pieces ever appear again after the sale. That detail sank into Logan's mind like a slow, heavy drop. Her voice deepened. Because they are replicas, and when the truth surfaces, the buyer settles quietly, rather than admit publicly that he was fooled. Logan shifted slightly. That detail mattered. Reputation was currency among the wealthy. Losing millions was painful. Losing dignity was fatal. Zariah stepped back from the display. She raised her chin, scanning the hall. Her gaze paused at Preston's office. Glass walls, partially closed blinds, shadowy movement inside. He kept glancing at her, calculating. He wasn't just scared. He was plotting. Zariah tucked a braid behind her ear and walked toward a side corridor lined with sculptures. She moved with calm purpose, still aware of every shadow. She didn't need to run. People who told the truth didn't run. Her footsteps echoed lightly against the marble. The corridor led to a quieter section of the expo, away from the largest crowds. She examined a metal sculpture of layered shapes and textures. Her mind, still sharp, traced the details. Brushed steel, welded seams, minor oxidation. Authentic. Then she felt it. The hairs on the back of her neck lifted. Someone was watching her. She turned her head slightly, enough to catch a reflection on the surface of the sculpture. A tall man in a dark suit stood near the entrance of the corridor. He wasn't admiring the art. He was waiting, not a guard, not a collector. Preston's move. Instead of walking away, Zariah continued examining the sculpture. Her breathing remained steady, but her mind sharpened. Her senses widening like a camera lens adjusting to low light. She mapped escape routes, nearby exits, and the distance between herself and the figure. But before that silent threat could act, another reflection appeared behind him, a second silhouette. Familiar this time, Logan. He spoke quietly to the man, too low for any guest to hear. Whatever he said changed the man's posture instantly. The tension drained from his shoulders. He stepped back and walked away without hesitation. Logan did not approach Zaraya. He simply returned to the center of the hall and resumed observing everything. From a vantage point where he could keep her in sight, Zaraya exhaled slowly. Preston had underestimated something far larger than her knowledge. He underestimated the fact that someone powerful was now watching her back. The expo lights dimmed slightly as evening settled, creating deeper shadows between displays. The shift wasn't noticeable to most guests, but Zaraya sensed it immediately. Lighting changes were standard toward closing hour, yet tonight it felt intentional, almost strategic. The darker corners offered gaps in visibility, pockets of privacy where someone could act unnoticed. She continued moving slowly along the walkway, peering to admire pieces of contemporary art while her instincts stayed alert. Years of working in museum archives had sharpened not just her knowledge, but her awareness of people and motives. She knew the signs when someone felt threatened by the truth. Lies don't retreat quietly. They push back. Down below, Logan signaled his head of security. The guard nodded and expanded the security perimeter, stationing a man near each exit. Zaraya noticed the movement. They weren't guarding the vase anymore. They were guarding the fallout. Preston Aldridge remained inside his office on the second level. The blinds no longer half closed but fully shut now. Only a sliver of his silhouette showed through the gap at the bottom. He was no longer trying to appear composed. He hid. That alone spoke louder than any confrontation. Zaraya stood at a display of abstract glass sculptures, pretending to observe the light refracting through the crystal edges. Her reflection fractured in the glass, splitting into multiple versions of herself. For a moment, she imagined each reflection representing a different choice she could have made. Staying silent, walking away, letting someone else be fooled. But in reality, there had never been a choice. She knew too much to let injustice happen. The soft footsteps of guests echoed behind her. They weren't approaching, just circling, observing her like she was an exhibit herself. Their eyes were filled with discomfort, not curiosity. Zaraya had broken an unspoken rule. She challenged wealth in a room that worshipped it. To them, honesty disrupted the elegance. She turned and walked toward the balcony that overlooked the main hall. From above, she could see the event in its entirety. Shifting clusters of guests, camera flashes, waiters carrying trays of sparkling drinks. Everything looked flawless from a distance. Perfect symmetry, perfect lighting, perfect illusion. But perfection, she knew, was often a sign of something rotten beneath. Her mind drifted to the first time she had uncovered a forgery. During her internship at a small museum in Houston, the senior curator brushed her off, insisting that she was mistaken. But she persisted, presented evidence, and saved the museum from embarrassment. She remembered the feeling that day, standing alone, facing an audience that doubted her. The pressure had felt suffocating then. Tonight felt the same, only amplified. More eyes, more money, more danger. She tightened her grip on the railing as the memory dissolved back into the present. On the expo floor below, Logan walked with hands in his pockets, studying the room quietly. He navigated the chaos without needing to command it. He was a storm without thunder, a force felt, not announced. Whenever he paused, people adjusted their positions around him, unconsciously acknowledging his gravity. He looked up, their eyes met. Zaraya didn't move, but she felt a grounding sense of clarity. After hours of tension, she finally understood something. Logan wasn't protecting her out of charity or fascination. He was protecting the truth. There were few things powerful men respected. Authenticity was one of them. In the same moment, a new noise echoed from behind. A door slammed. The blinds to Preston's office flew open. He stepped out, coat now removed, sleeves rolled up as if preparing for a fight he could no longer avoid. His face was flushed with anger, but beneath the anger lived something more potent: fear. He made his way down the stairs in stiff, rigid steps. His polished shoes struck the marble aggressively, drawing attention. Guests fell silent as he descended. He reached the main floor and headed directly toward Logan. From above, Zariah watched him approach the billionaire like a desperate man walking toward a verdict. For a long moment, the two men stood face to face. No yelling, no dramatic gestures, just silence thick enough to hold the weight of everything unspoken. Logan leaned slightly forward, his voice too low for others to hear. Whatever he said made Preston freeze in place. His shoulders lowered. His posture collapsed, not physically but in defeat. Preston stepped back, trembling. The entire hall saw it. He turned away, face pale, and walked toward a side exit, fast, almost stumbling. The owner of the expo was leaving his own exhibition, not because of a vase, but because one unknown woman refused to let a lie live. As Preston disappeared behind the curtain, a collective shift happened in the room, guests murmured. Collectors turned pale. Journalists lifted their cameras. Zariah stepped back from the railing. This was the moment she fully understood. Uncovering the truth wasn't just an act of courage. It removed the ground from beneath those built on illusion. And tonight, lies had nowhere left to hide. For a brief moment, the entire expo seemed frozen mid-breath. The owner of the event had vanished behind the curtain like a magician abandoning his own show. The sudden absence left a hollow echo, a void that drew every eye toward Logan, and then toward the lone figure standing on the balcony. Zariah. She didn't absorb the attention with pride or satisfaction. Instead, she stood still, grounded by quiet conviction. She knew what had happened tonight was not victory. It was exposure. Once a lie is dragged into the light, the people who benefited from it will fight to push it back into the dark. She walked down the staircase slowly, not hiding and not rushing. Guests instinctively stepped aside. Some moved out of respect, others out of discomfort. Unsure of how close they wanted to stand to the troublemaker, her footsteps echoed, soft but deliberate. At the bottom of the stairs, a journalist stepped forward, camera already lifted. "Miss Mitchell, can you state your credentials?" Before he could finish, 3 collectors pulled him back, whispering furiously. They weren't trying to protect Preston. They were trying to protect the market. A public scandal would shake the value of art investments worldwide. Their faces tightened with the fear of losing millions. Zariah continued walking, refusing to be slowed by someone else's panic. The air changed as she stepped into the center of the hall. There, the vase still stood under bright lights, surrounded by security. It gleamed beautifully, seductive in its deception. The spotlight made it appear even more authentic, more valuable. Everything lies tend to do. She stopped a few feet away from it. For the first time, she let herself feel the weight of what she had done. This wasn't just about preventing one fraudulent sale. It was about confronting a system built on illusion and greed. She rested one hand lightly on the railing, grounding herself as the tension in the room became almost tactile. She could feel eyes on her, sharp like needles. A lesser person would buckle under it. But Zariah had trained herself to stand tall in rooms designed to exclude her. Logan approached without ceremony. He stopped beside her, not ahead, not behind, exactly beside her. Without needing to speak, it became clear that whatever storm came next, she wouldn't be facing it alone. They stood shoulder to shoulder, watching the vase. The silence between them was not awkward. It was strategic. Finally, Logan spoke. His voice remained low, slow, and controlled. Preston will not come back, he wasn't asking. He wasn't guessing. He knew. Zariah kept her eyes on the vase. In the world he built, there's no place for accountability. Logan turned his head slightly, studying her profile. He saw strength, but he also saw exhaustion behind her steady gaze. Speaking truth always carried cost. "You knew what this would trigger," he said. "Yes," she replied quietly, "but silence would have cost more." The security chief approached with a tablet in hand. "Sir, we traced the vase's transaction records." Logan nodded for him to continue. "It was purchased 3 months ago from a replica studio in Los Angeles. The studio confirmed the sale. They even sent documentation." Zariah closed her eyes briefly. Confirmation, not just suspicion, evidence. "The studio owner agreed to send the paperwork directly to your legal office," the guard added. Logan exhaled, slow and steady. The truth had shifted from assumption to proof. The web of deception had snapped. Across the hall, some guests left in a hurry, avoiding eye contact as if they feared being linked to the scandal. Others remained frozen, unable to accept that the elegant world around them could be shaken by one woman who refused to be silent. Zariah looked at Logan. "It's over." Logan shook his head once. "No. For Preston, maybe. But not for you," she frowned, unsure. He placed one hand lightly on the railing beside her, not touching her but close enough to show intention. "You will be known after tonight," he said. "People in this industry don't forget those who expose what they want hidden." He wasn't warning her. He was acknowledging her impact. Zariah inhaled deeply, realizing the truth of his words. Her anonymity was gone. Tonight changed her life, whether she wanted it to or not. Instead of fear, she felt clarity. "I didn't come here to be known," she said. "I came here because truth deserves a voice." Logan didn't respond immediately. His silence held respect. Security began roping off the area around the Vase. Guests cleared out. The expo was closing early, not by announcement, but by atmosphere. Nothing more needed to be said. Logan's voice broke the quiet. "Come with me." Zariah turned slightly, questioning without words. He continued, "I have an office upstairs. If you're willing, I'd like to hear your full assessment." Zariah nodded once, not because of his status, but because of the sincerity in his tone. Side by side, they walked toward the exclusive elevator at the back of the hall. People watched them go, not with contempt anymore, but with awe. The girl they dismissed had become the center of the night. Yet she walked with no pride, no triumph, only truth. The elevator doors glided open with a muted chime. A quiet, controlled space lay beyond, far removed from the chaotic atmosphere of the expo. Thick glass walls framed the skyline of New York City. The lights from the skyscrapers below shimmered on the river like a trail of scattered diamonds. Zariah stepped out first. The room was not decorated with extravagance, but intention. Smooth marble floors, a walnut desk free from clutter, a wall of floor-to-ceiling windows. The silence felt different here, not tense, not watchful. Safe. Logan entered and motioned toward a chair near the window. He didn't sit behind the desk like a superior. Instead, he sat beside her, creating a horizontal dynamic. Two people facing a problem, not each other. Zariah placed her now cold latte cup on the small side table, finally letting go of it. Her hands relaxed. Her shoulders loosened. For the first time all night, she allowed herself to breathe without calculating her next move. The ambient hum from below faded into the background like distant rainfall. The weight of the room shifted. Logan opened a sleek leather folder on the table and slid a small stack of documents toward her. The paper was dense, thick, the kind used for long-term agreements. Zariah didn't reach for them. She waited. He spoke slowly, choosing each word with restraint. "I have been looking for someone like you. No dramatics, no performances, just truth." He leaned back slightly in his chair, watching her reaction. In this world, people chase influence. They chase status. You chased none of that, yet you shook an entire industry tonight. He paused, letting the magnitude settle. "Not by shouting," he continued, "but by standing firm." Zariah kept her gaze on the skyline, allowing his words to absorb rather than deflect. She had spent years building expertise in silence, doing meticulous work in cold museum basements, studying artifacts without applause. Recognition had never been the goal. Truth was, "You know what that moment required," she said quietly. "Courage is not loud, it's steady." Logan turned slightly, resting his elbow on the side of the chair. He studied her, not her appearance, not the drama of the evening, but the structure of her conviction. "People will speak about tonight," he said, "and they will speak about you." He slid the documents closer. "I want you to be on the right side of that narrative." Her eyes shifted to the papers. The bold header at the top read, "Art Authentication Division, Whitaker Global Holdings." Her heartbeat picked up. She flipped to the next page. The terms were explicit. Full authority over acquisitions, independent verification rights, unrestricted budget for travel and analysis. Then she saw the final line: annual compensation, $650,000 plus performance bonus. The number didn't shock her. The responsibility did. She closed the folder gently and let her fingers rest on the cover. Her mind didn't spin to the money or the prestige. It went to the work, the scale of impact, the ability to stop future frauds before they ever began. "Why me?" she asked. Logan stood and walked toward the window, keeping his back to her for a moment. The lights of the city reflected across the polished floor. "You see things others overlook," he said. "Not because you chase power, but because you chase truth." He turned again, leaning against the glass, arms crossed with quiet certainty. "And because the world needs someone who doesn't flinch." Zariah held his gaze. The enormity of the moment pressed gently against her chest. She had spent her life proving herself to people who could not see past surface assumptions: age, clothes, skin. Here, someone saw her mind. The silence was no longer heavy. It was full of possibility. She stood from the chair and walked toward the window, joining him. Side by side, they watched the river, two different lives converging in one moment. Below them, the expo lights flickered as staff began shutting down exhibits. The fake vase would be removed soon, tagged as evidence. History wouldn't remember the vase, but it would remember the truth. Zariah spoke softly, almost to the glass. "I didn't do this for money." "I know," he replied. "I didn't do it for recognition. You didn't need it." She turned her head slightly, studying him. "Then why are you offering me this?" He held her gaze, unwavering. "Because integrity cannot be taught," he said. "And you already have it." The room felt still, balanced, no chaos, no pressure, no noise. Just two people standing in the truth they both recognized. Zariah finally nodded, not for the job, but for the path she had chosen long before tonight. "I will consider it." Logan smiled, not victorious, not triumphant, but understanding. "For now," he said gently, "let me walk you out." He didn't lead the way, he walked beside her. They left the private office and returned to the quiet corridors of the convention center. The expo lights were dimmer now, and most of the guests had already left. The echo of footsteps along the polished floor sounded like distant waves. Everything that had felt overwhelming earlier now felt strangely calm. Zariah and Logan walked side by side toward the main exit. Neither of them spoke, yet the silence wasn't empty. It was full of decisions, of consequences, of everything that had shifted in one evening. When they reached the center of the hall, the vase was gone. The pedestal where it once stood now held only a faint outline of where the glass case had rested. That absence said everything. The lie had been removed. Zariah paused. It was the last moment she would stand in front of that exhibit, a place where everything changed. Logan watched her quietly. "You changed the ending of that vase," he said. Zariah shook her head slowly. "I didn't change its ending. I stopped someone from writing a false story." She walked toward the grand exit doors, feeling the weight of the night fall away with each step. The cool night air swept in as an attendant opened the door for them. Outside, the city lights glowed like endless constellations. Cars moved in streams along the avenue, horns echoing in the distance. New York was awake, alive, unbothered by the storm that unfolded inside the expo. Zariah stepped outside and inhaled deeply. The night smelled like rain on steel and ocean salt carried by the wind. She felt restored, as if the chaos of the expo had been washed away the moment she crossed the threshold. Logan stopped beside her on the sidewalk. He didn't crowd her, didn't overpower the moment. He simply stood, hands in his pockets like a man aware that a story had reached its turning point. Streetlights painted soft halos around them. The wind pulled at Zariah's jacket, lifting the denim edges just slightly. Logan spoke first. "You could disappear right now," he said. "No interviews, no spotlight, no agenda. Tonight doesn't have to define you." She looked out at the city, thoughtful. "Truth doesn't disappear just because people stop talking about it." He nodded slowly. "And neither do the people who protect it." A taxi rolled to the curb, brakes hissing. The driver leaned over and raised a hand toward them. "Need a ride?" Zariah shook her head. Not yet. The taxi pulled away, leaving the night quieter. For the first time since the expo began, she allowed herself to feel something other than responsibility. She felt possibility. Logan turned slightly toward her. "When you are ready, contact me. The offer won't disappear." Zariah met his eyes, steady, certain. "I know." Wind blew gently through the avenue. A street lamp flickered. Someone laughed in the distance. Life continued without the weight of what happened inside the expo. She began walking down the sidewalk, and Logan matched her pace. "You're not afraid of the backlash?" he asked. She smiled softly, not slowing her stride. "I've lived most of my life being underestimated. Fear lost its power years ago." They reached a corner where the sidewalk split, one path heading toward the river, the other toward the subway entrance. The city lights played against the glass buildings, creating a reflection of her own silhouette, walking toward her future. Zariah stopped and faced him. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For listening to someone who didn't have authority. Most people see status first, truth second." Logan held her gaze. "You changed that tonight." She nodded once, then stepped toward the subway stairs. Just before she descended, she added, "I will call you soon." The sentence wasn't hesitant. It was a decision. She disappeared into the stairwell, her figure swallowed by the glow of the underground lights. Logan remained on the sidewalk, hands still in his pockets, watching the space where she had stood. He wasn't used to people walking away first, but tonight he understood something. Control didn't always define power. Sometimes integrity did. He turned and walked toward his waiting car. Across the city, Zariah boarded the subway. She sat by the window, watching the reflections blur into streaks of light as the train moved. Her heart was steady, her purpose clear. Tonight she didn't become powerful, she simply stopped pretending she wasn't. And in doing so, she changed everything.